Hi, this is Mike Ferguson from Milestone's Hand Painted Keepsakes. I had a question recently about whether or not we could make a 12-dot pip, so I thought I would answer that question in conjunction with creating a video showing how to create an alternating spiral. So here we go. First, using your 6-dot pip, mark your dots with a white chalk pencil on your rock in the desired position. White chalk comes off the stone very easily after painting with just a damp Q-tip. So now we have our basic 6-dot pattern established. Using a flexible ruler, draw your radial lines by just connecting the opposite pairs of dots. This will give you your basic guidelines for laying out your 6 initial dots. So I've placed a large center dot. I'm now coming in with my first color, blue in this case, and I'm going to be placing a small dot on each line equidistant from the center dot. So you want to try and keep that spacing from the center dot as consistent as possible. Once that's finished, I'm going to come back in with my secondary color. In this case, it's a fuchsia color, and place a dot of the same size equidistant between each of the 2 blue dots and equidistant from the center dot. This establishes a basic 12-dot pattern, which you can now continue to work out in the stone in any number of patterns. But as you see, now we have our basic 12-dot established using a 6-dot pip. So same thing can be done with a 5-dot pip doubling to 10, 7 to 14, 8 to 16, etc. So I'm going to travel to the right to begin my spiral, so I'm placing a slightly larger blue dot to the right of each of my initial blue dots. Switching to my fuchsia color, I'm going to come back in and add the same size dot between each of the 2 blue dots. I'm going to continue building the rows out in this way until I get 3 or 4 deep. Getting about 3 or 4 rows of dots in is when you can really start to see the spiral pattern emerge. So it's at that point that we wanted to switch directions in our spiral for the first time. To do it before that is really just going to kind of make a more of a jumbled random pattern, not the spiral effect that we actually are going for. So this is the last row that I'm laying in that'll be traveling in a right-hand or clockwise direction. So once I get these last row of pink dots in, you'll see the next pink dot that I lay are going to switch direction. And now instead of going to the right of the previous dot, I'm going to start going to the left. So here's my first pink dot in that alternating direction. So now I'm traveling to the left of each dot as opposed to the right. And I'm going to continue to work in this fashion, building out rows, carrying the pattern out basically as far as I want to carry it out. You can also, if you have working on a large stone or a large surface, if you wanted to, every 3 or 4 or 5 rows of dots, it's really your choice, you could switch directions. So not only switching directions from right to left, you can go right to left and back again, and basically switches as many times as you have room to work. So this is kind of an interesting effect, adds a lot of motion to the stone, and I'd encourage you to try and play around with it as a little variation on a basic simple spiral. one thing about the guidelines and using the pips, don't worry too much about the lines being exact and staying exact. They're really just meant as guides. And if you're off slightly from the chalk line, don't panic. Just try and work your design back onto the guidelines if you can, knowing that in the end, once your paint is dry, you're going to wipe all those chalk lines off with a damp Q-tip, so they're not going to be visible anyway. So I'm laying in now the last row of dots, and you can see that direction is really dramatically switched from right to left, and you could easily go right to left and back again and have a lot of fun with it. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. Toodle pip.